Hello, folks. I'm going to do a few ghost stories, and I'm going to start off tonight with the ghost story of Cumber House. Then I'll go into my experiences of Cumber House, and then I'm going to explain the story and what I actually think of the story. So, many of you know that I am a skeptic of a lot of ghost stories. So, be interesting to hear what I'm going to come up with as a possible explanation to this story. So, let's get into it. I'm going to read actually from Fiona Stewart, who is a psychic here. Right, it says, Cumber House, a breathtaking, stately home that sits proudly within its own private grounds, was built in the 1830s and inhabited by the Brown family. With huge influences and power. I'm not quite sure what Mr. Brown was what was his occupation and that, but apparently he had a big influence in town. He was pretty well off. Well, obviously the size of his house. The story of the haunting begins when the old man Brown died. It was understood that the gentleman misused and abused his power when living, and was not very liked by the locals. After the old man passed away, one of the priests made a comment to the head gardener at the time that the old man was burning in the fires of hell. The gardener told the family this, and they surrounded the priest to confront him. The old man's son had a pistol, held it to the priest, screaming at him to prove that his father was in hell. The priest got down on his knees and started praying like never before. When time had passed and no proof was seen, the son was getting more and more agitated. The priest then rolled up his trousers and prayed on his bare knees. He drew a circle on the floor and prayed again. Suddenly, from the circle drawn on the floor, the ghost of the old man appeared out of flames. The priest ran from the house and never returned. The ghost of the old man haunted the house for a long time, until the family finally got another priest to come and banish him. This he did by drawing a circle at the foot of one of the trees in the grounds and ordered him into it. Many people have reported the sounds of knocking and scraping coming from the direction of the tree beside Cumber House. There is a tree beside Cumber House and it is cut, and one of the investigators that I was with the last time asked me, could it be possible that is the tree? And it could well be, but I don't know. The ghost of the old man haunted the house for a long time until the family finally got another priest to come and banish him. This he did by drawing a circle at the foot of the tree in the grounds and ordered him into it. Many people have reported the sounds of knocking and scraping coming from the direction of the tree beside Cumber House. And only the very brave will walk unaccompanied round the grounds at night. More recently was the sighting of a lady who has been seen walking the halls, landings and stairs. Gusts of ice cold wind, followed by unexplained moving of objects and turning on and off electrical appliances, have also been reported. Just going to go back to the second last paragraph. Many people have reported the sounds of knocking and scraping coming from the direction of the tree beside Cumber House, and only the very brave will walk unaccompanied round the grounds at night. I have been around the grounds at night, and I haven't been scared. And I've been on my own, because a lot of the time I am filming on my own, and the first time I walked around the grounds at night, that paragraph was in my head, so I says, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove it wrong. But the other point that was made there, that many people have reported the sounds of knocking and scraping coming from direction of the tree beside Cumber House. Now, I have been on the grounds and I've heard knocking and thumping and that. The thing is, there's a lot of rabbits in that area. I've seen them myself, and sometimes for communication they use their hind legs and vibrate the ground. I don't know, is it a mating call or a communication or something like that? But for me, I would take something like that into account. I have spoken to the caretaker of the house. He has not experienced anything paranormal in the house. But when it comes to paranormal stories attached to a house, that attracts curiosity in that. To explain why the caretaker never experienced anything paranormal in the house, possibly because he wasn't looking for it. The question comes into, the question I would ask about this is, when we go on a paranormal investigation and we're calling out to the spirits around, are we attracting the spirits? Because that's one thing I wanted to ask about. That's one thing I wanted to cover on. Seeing as the caretaker didn't experience anything himself, does the spirits leave people alone if they're just getting on with their business? After all, there is a gym there. It's used by the local community. Community groups use the building. The building is repurposed. It doesn't have its original furnitures. It doesn't have its original purpose. Upstairs is a bar. There is other rooms that can be used for different activities and such things. It was bought by the GAA in the 1970s for a very small amount of money, along with the grounds. And the grounds was important to them because they could have their pitch. And there is a walled garden behind the house, and that is a public playground. And then there is a nice walkway around the river. It goes almost the whole way into town, sort of thing, and it comes back another sort of direction towards the house and that. But as I said, I've been on the grounds a number of times. I haven't experienced anything that would make me think that I shouldn't be on my own, sort of thing. I've done a number of investigations, and actually this house is very special to me because back in 2017, what I was doing was abandoned exploring, but I was very, very interested in the paranormal. And I had already been to a place called the Cuneen Ghost House. And that was a house that was an abandoned house in County Fermanagh, in the forest in County Fermanagh, just outside 5 Mile Town. There was a program on about 13 years ago, from the date I'm filming this, called Northern Ireland's Greatest Haunt and the Haunts, and the main presenter of that show was a guy called Andy Matthews, and he co-hosted with Marion Goodfellow, a psychic. So I was very, very excited to be at that house, but at the time I was abandoned exploring. I had terrible experiences in that house, and it sort of made me want to explore the paranormal more. And then further down the line, I done an abandoned explorer in a hospital, a local hospital here, which I picked up an EVP while editing the video, and the hair stood on the back of my head, So this is where I wanted to get more into the paranormal. I went to take a walk and to film around Cumber House. It wasn't going to be a massively exciting video, but what happened was I was filming in front of Cumber House, and every time I wanted to say what I say on front of Cumber House, something happened. Somebody walked past, or a car came in, and I says, right, I'm going to do a final take. Hopefully this is it. Next thing, this car pulls in, and it's the caretaker. And I got talking to him, and he let me in. So he let me in, he let me have a walk around, and then he says, there's paranormal investigation on tonight, and that's why I'm getting the place ready. And I says, oh, brilliant, I wonder could I go? He says, well, there's no harm in asking. So this paranormal investigation wasn't going to happen for a couple of hours. So I says, right, I'm going to film around the woods and that, around the grounds and that. And I spotted a rabbit. And it was starting to get a little bit dark. I spotted this rabbit. I went to get a closer shot of it with the camera, and I tripped on a small fence, and I hurt my shin. And I says, do you know something? I'm just going to go home. But he did say that there was another group coming in the next night. So I pulled up the next night, and all I had was a voice recorder, a baby monitor with a night vision on it, and a video camera. And that is basically it. That's all I had. I showed up at the investigation. There was 2 teams. One of them was a Peninsula Paranormal group, and the other group was Carrickfergus Paranormal group. And they were very welcoming, and, I had to pay a little fee and that, but that, that's it. In these kind of situations, you all sort of chip in, and the cost is split among everybody. So that was grand. I was delighted because I never been on a paranormal investigation before, and that was my first experience. Was actually Cumber House, and it was very, very exciting because I actually caught a light anomaly in the basement and that. So and then it's the first time I ever seen an EMF meter in real life. I've seen it on Ghost Adventures. Never seen a PSP-7. So looking at all this equipment, I was all excited and that. And I had nothing. I was a bit embarrassed because all I had in the car was a cheap second-hand camera from a second-hand electrical store, the voice recorder and the baby monitor with the night vision on it, but no recording facilities. So it all went forward from there, because at one stage I was walking around and I was doing a lot of filming, while the groups had all split up in different areas and that. And I didn't stick with one particular group. I was walking around filming all the time. And the lead investigator, Ronnie, called me in at one stage when I was passing a room that they were doing an investigation in one of the basement rooms, and they had a SLS camera. And it didn't see one of them in action in real life either. And he says, come here, where do you see this? And they had picked up a stick figure in the corner of the room. And one of the investigators says, can you wave your hand for Samantha? And that next thing, the stick figure started waving and that, and I was going. When I got home that night, I sat up most of the night with excitement and going through my footage, and I was buzzing for weeks after that. And that's what brought me into getting involved in the paranormal again. I wasn't previously involved in that part of the paranormal. I was doing ITC and stuff like that, and ITC experiments and that, but not this type of excitement, if you know what I mean. So the Cumber House is it holds a special place in my heart. My own experiences. Well, I got the first time I got that light anomaly in the basement room, kind of a crawl space that's used kind of for storage and that. Seen the SLS footage on the first investigation as well. I was pretty impressed with that. I went to the stables another daytime and done a spurt box in the stables and had a stone thrown at me. And when I looked around, there was nobody about. In fact, that happened to me twice, on two separate occasions, where stones were thrown at me. No, the stone was thrown at me, and then a stone was thrown at the boiler inside the stables and that. Captured a light anomaly coming from a chair in the hallway towards an investigator that was holding an EMF meter and calling out, and it moved with purpose straight across the room to that investigator. I thought that was pretty amazing. I had a weird experience that first investigation with a sort of a glass tipping thing. You put your fingers on the glass and you get them to move the glass and that. It didn't move the glass, but I had this, it was like a bolt of electricity up my arm. It was kind of weird. Going back to the story, do I think that this story is true? Thing is, I said on a live stream about a lot of stories. You gotta remember, a way back, that we didn't have social media. We didn't have, that kind of free, available, sharing your story sort of thing. This is the 1830s and that. So a lot of stories were told in the public houses. And when it comes to accuracy, my thoughts is, if you tell a story in a public house and somebody that's a little bit tipsy hears that story and tells it to their friend, the person that was a bit tipsy may have added to that story. But even without alcohol involved, I've seen experiments where a story is told to one person. That person has to deliver that story to the next person, and they had a line of 10 people. By the time it got to the 10th person, the story had dramatically changed. So that's the thing I always take into account. I did know this story before I went in on the investigation. Did I call out for Mr. Brown? I kind of hope I didn't. But that's generally what I don't do. And I know so more now. What I would do is if I had the story, I would understand the story, but then the investigation, I don't investigate based around the story and based around the names. The names are important, but if I was doing a spirit box or a calling out, especially with the spirit box, if you call out the names connected with the story, you do often get those names coming up on the spirit box. Now, the question is whatever's communicating with the spirit box, they do have a habit of copying what you're saying. And sometimes they will give you what you want to hear. So, that's why I try to keep the names out of it. Don't go into, a room and say, is Mr. Brown here? I've seen other investigators do it. I just don't do it. The last investigation, I was with Peninsula Paranormal group, and I was with another group as well. And the other group had said to me, well, we were down in the basement and we were trying to call out for Mr. Brown. And, and then they were telling me about this story. I says, I know the story, but I think it's bullshit. And there was a local lady there, and she was a little bit upset with me, because this is the story that's part of her neighbourhood, her village history, and I was kind of shitting on it, which I kind of regretted afterwards, and thought I should have kept my thoughts to myself. Banishing somebody into a butt of a tree. Now, I did go into the possibility that there is lots of rabbits around, and I used to keep rabbits, so that's why I knew this vibration that they do. It's really, really at very, very high speed, where they would thump the ground and you could hear the thumping and that. I did experience that on the grounds, but you have to take into account that there is wildlife about, So that's basically the story. The priest banishing him into a bush of a tree. A very, very difficult one to believe, especially when the priest had a pistol to his head, and was asked to prove that his father was in hell, and he appears out of this circle in flames. It's a difficult one, but as I says, the possibility is the public houses, along with being a local court for minor offences, a lot of stories went around the pubs. So, then again, when you think about it too, a lot of the pubs we would look back at now, and a lot of pubs are haunted. Is it connected with alcohol? I don't know. Of course, there is a lot of stories that are very, very sort of physically impossible. We don't hear about these things now, so, I'll let you draw your own conclusions. I'm going to leave it, folks. I might cover another story soon. Might cover a story that of a location that I'm actually supposed to be in, but because of the worldwide situation, we can't. There've been no official investigations this year, so which is a pity, you know. Hopefully we'll get back on track in 2021, and we can forget about 2020 as not the best year in the world, to be as honest with you. Not the best year for any of us, to be honest. But we'll see what 2021 brings. I love those official investigations, because places like Cumber House, you're inside, you've got heating, you've got tables and chairs to sit on, you've got a kitchen where you can make tea, and you can bring as much equipment as you want, and you can set it up and charge it up, and it's much more of a comfortable environment. When we're out in woods and forests and that, we're limited to the amount of equipment we can bring, and it's more of a sort of there's more movement involved in places like woods and that, where you're moving around and trying to get as much visuals as possible. But I'm going to leave it, folks, and I will see you in the next one. And hopefully I will get another few stories from around my area, which I haven't told at all. And I'll bring in the haunted stories from around my area, and possibly my own hometown, which has a couple of haunted stories of its own. So I'll see you in the next one, folks.